Hello everybody. It's been a while, but a lot has happened in my life. The biggest thing is I moved from Austin to Los Angeles. So if you're in LA, hello. But also one of the biggest things ever is that I made my first video course. This is the course that I've been wanting to make for a long time, and it's the course that I wish existed when I started out performing my music. It's called DIY Live, a musician's jumpstart into modern performance. It's catered to solo artists and smaller bands who are new to the whole process and who want to gain an understanding about all the technical things, the gear-related things, logistics, and direction. Basically just a complete jumpstart to learning the essentials from taking your music from a home studio or a bedroom to performing live. There's not really anyone out there that directly helps you holding your hand through the whole beginning of that process, and I saw a need to be filled. This video is just to give you a sneak peek into one of the chapters of the course, and you can watch this whole chapter for free, basically. This specific chapter is a video for anyone that wants to perform their virtual instruments live. That could be anything from a certain contact library. It could be an instrument patch for whatever DAW that you're using for your playback from, or it could even be a drum machine where you're loading in your own samples and your drummer is triggering those sounds live. All the principles and how to perform those live are kind of the same, so this is just to show you how to navigate those things. So I don't want to take up a bunch of your time, we'll just dive straight into the content, but if you want to see the whole course, get a glimpse of what all the chapters are about, the link will be in the description. I tried to keep it nice and cheap because I know a lot of people starting out in this space don't really want to spend a bunch of money on learning all this kind of stuff, so it's at a good price where it's great for someone at the entry level, so that there is no barrier to gaining the knowledge that you need in order to get going. So here's the video. If you have keyboard patches in your songs that you would like to perform live, but the sounds that you used were from various virtual instruments, there's a few basic ways that you can go about this. First, let me break down the things that you'll need. A computer or device to run the virtual instruments, of course. A keyboard, whether that's just a MIDI keyboard controller or a preferred keyboard that has MIDI or some kind of USB connection. And lastly, you'll need an interface or a sound card of some sort to run the output through the front of house system. Let's break that down in order. To start, you need a device to play the software. Some people favor having a computer in this case and using things like Ableton or Logic to host the virtual instrument tracks. Some people prefer a standalone sort of software like MainStage, if you're in Apple's ecosystem, where its sole purpose is to just play the virtual instruments. Some people prefer to use an iPad to run keyboard sounds, if your software of choice is compatible with that format. So however you want to run your virtual instruments is totally up to you. The next thing you'll need is a MIDI controller of some sort. It really doesn't matter what kind of MIDI controller you want to use. It could be a keyboard, it could be a beat pad, it could be MIDI gloves, if that's your thing. I like to use my M-Audio Keystation 49 right here as a keyboard if I ever play live. And for our drum triggers, I'll use the eDrummin. It's a trigger interface. And then I use a couple Roland triggers, whether that's either shell triggers or bar triggers. I also have this little Akai keyboard that I use sometimes that will run for the virtual bass instruments, because for bass we don't really need anything more than a few notes, so something small like this is totally fine. You'll need a good MIDI or USB cable to connect your computer device of choice. I recommend getting something long enough for your use case and not using USB extenders, because these can fail really easily, and that's not something that you want to happen while you're playing your show. If you're going straight into your computer with your MIDI device and it's near your computer, I really like these cables from DJ Tech Tools. They're just a high quality USB Type B to USB Type C. Later on you'll see a little bit more details about how I break down my rack and how I run my MIDI instruments into a hub. A lot of the times I'm just using a longer USB cable. I want to say this is somewhere between 10 and 15 feet, which is just a standard typical USB Type B, which plugs into the back, and the other end is this typical USB Type A. And these work fine. There's nothing special about them. They're just standard long cables. And then on the way out, you'll just need an interface that can output your patch sounds to front of house. Whether you go mono or stereo on this output is totally up to you. Maybe you have some keyboard patches that do some cool panning things from left to right and that you really need stereo. And however, it needs to be patched via 1/4" or XLR or even an 1/8" stereo cable. You'll just have to manage that with your setup. Most of the time, the front of house will want an XLR feed of whatever you're sending. So if it's not already being ran through a DI box to convert to XLR, you might need one of those, or simply like a 1/4" to XLR cable could work if that works with your interface. The way that I do it is via the same Ableton session that my computer runs the backtracks. This allows for an easy automation with patch changes per song. Like for example, I have certain keyboard sounds in a verse, and then pre-chorus has a totally different sound. Without needing to push any buttons, it just automatically changes. Programming these patches and selecting gear to do it the way I do it was all advised in my journey from other professionals who do these type of things every day on the road with big artists. And at the time of me diving in to learn how to do all this stuff, the Play Audio 12 interface by iConnectivity, which you'll hear me mention a lot in this series, was a Swiss Army knife for this type of MIDI solution that I was looking for as well. Within the hardware unit itself, it's capable to run up to 8 MIDI devices with their own dedicated sort of channels of communication. They call them host ports. So we run all our devices through a USB hub into the Play Audio 12, and from there reserve those USB channels via the host ports within the Ableton session instrument tracks. We also run our keyboard patches and drum trigger sounds through our main left-right stereo XLR feed of backtracks to front of house. I do this because all of my patches and sounds are mixed and gained properly with the backtracks. So running it with those feeds, it should be consistent in each venue that we play, eliminating the need for front of house to have to mix those things independently live as well. If I ever did want to do that, however, there's plenty of outputs on the Play Audio 12 to run those as separate feeds if I ever wanted to do that. I will say that I'd also use one of the outputs of the Play Audio 12 as like a monitoring channel for the keys so that our key player can turn up the keyboards within their own ears and not have to worry about that affecting the volume of the sound for front of house. So as long as your interface of choice has the right amount of outputs for your situation, it doesn't really matter how you approach it, as long as the configuration works best for your own performance. A little bonus nugget here for those who want to go a little deeper with MIDI and doing like key stuff live or any sort of patch things live performance-wise. If you're playing stages where a 10-foot USB cord is just not enough for your MIDI devices, you can actually run MIDI over what's called RTP. This comes in a device that converts a MIDI or USB signal to RTP and then outputs it via Ethernet, which allows you to run this data well over a few hundred feet if you ever need to. You just run that Ethernet cable back to your computer to run on the same network as your laptop, and then use software like iConnectivity's Oracle to configure those RTP paths. This is like a whole nother world of really cool customization that I personally haven't dove much into yet, and it would be a course on its own entirely. I know that iConnectivity is one of the leaders in this space, and they have plenty of tutorials on how to go about doing that if that's something that you might be interested in.